Hello. Today we'll be singing Graves into Gardens by Elevation Worship. Enjoy!
I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade were never enough. Then you came along and you pulled me back together. Now every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing that's better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you see them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountains is the God of the valleys, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing that's better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing that's better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing that's better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing that's better than you.
It is so unfortunate that us as the youth we usually give up, especially when maybe we bring a project on the first attempt fail. But that should not be the case. From the class, I was challenged by the saying that failure is not the worst thing that can happen to you, but failing to learn from the failure is. It has really mentored me in a way, and actually, personally, I really find it outstanding and unique because of its essence of being practical. It's more of applying what you've learned. So, failure is part of the recipe of success. So, this has challenged me as a youth and as a leader in that anytime I introduce a concept and maybe it's not embraced as I expected, I should not give up, but instead change the approach. From the previous classes, addressing failures in our lives stood out to me as the best principle. Reason being, failure is almost inevitable in life, especially if you want to achieve anything extraordinary. I look forward to being an icon of change in Africa and a world-class leader of integrity and character, because I believe basically that is what Africa needs to see the change that we want. My name is Lydia Motoru. I'm a third-year student at Kirinyaga University, pursuing Bachelor of Commerce. More to that, I'm so delighted to be part of this mentorship program.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm excited about introducing to you my next guest. He's a young brilliant, a visionary, a leader who has such a heart to see communities being transformed. I met with him actually in 2017 during his campaign that he was running for office as a parliamentary seat. And one of the things that intrigued me is that he has such an inspiring story. I mean, he's one person that I can describe to be resilient, as somebody who's thinking outside the box. And prior to that, he has worked in the banking sector, went to Nairobi University, did exceedingly well, and actually did well once he got a job. And what's also quite interesting is that currently he's at Reading University in UK, and the way this came about is that he got the prestigious scholarship of a Chevening Scholarship, which is awarded by the UK government to the very best students in the world. And can you imagine, out of 70,000 aspirants, my guest today, he was shortlisted. They only take 1,800 people out of 70,000 who are the very best, and he was one of them. And the school that he goes to in Reading, he's studying agriculture because he desires to see a change taking place in terms of having sustainable agriculture. And in fact, the college that he's actually going to is one of the best in the world. It offers a degree in agriculture. So I'm excited that today he will be sharing his own journey, his own story, and I hope this will inspire you. So please do welcome Sam Wairimu, all the way from UK. Thank you, God bless, and looking forward for a great time.
Hi everyone, my name is Samuel Ndongo Wairimu, and I hope all of you are not scared that the photo you've been seeing might look different. So where I am currently, we do not have barbershops open, but fortunately we're having them opened tomorrow. I also don't like having glasses when I'm speaking to people, so just to have that eye contact, which is essential, because my glasses are not for seeing people, they are for actually reducing the amount of light, especially when I'm using a computer. So thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me to shape the future of the world. And I say the future of the world because I know that wherever you guys will go, you might, maybe I hear we have students from Rwanda, but I believe wherever you will go, you will also do stuff that will help the world. So when I say we are speaking to the future of the world, that's true. The other thing I would also want to say is that you guys are lucky, because these days we have a lot of people and a lot of forums that are coming up to help young people, to support them, to facilitate them, to acquire the skills that are necessary in this life. So we also have the whole issue of COVID-19, and so right now I'm recording this from my room, currently in England, where I've been doing my master's for the last 1 year. But maybe I'll come to that in details later. But first of all, that was a slight introduction. So let me say, I'm doing my master's here at the University of Reading in the UK. I'm sponsored by the United Kingdom government for the Chevening Scholarship for young leaders and future change makers in the world. So it's normally every year in the world. Every country applies, and every year they select, let's say, 1,800 scholars globally out of last year I know the applications were like 70,000 globally, although they are allocated per country. So that is enough of my introduction. Maybe I should say I'm doing an MSc in agriculture and development, and it's been pretty busy right now in the summer here because I'm currently writing my dissertation. So I was asked to, this was actually the question that I got, and I have, in when you want to really, I know most of you are students, but you really have to understand the question for you to answer. So I might tell you stuff, and I would be wondering afterwards, did I answer the questions that I was required to answer? So in this case, I was told that my story is inspiring, and a lot of young people assume that those who make it have never had major challenges in life. So what I would like to say is that my story is different and yours is different, and we cannot have the same story. But what I believe in is that we can draw some lessons from other people's lives and see what exactly worked for them, and see what can we do today. Maybe in your field, I might tell you what I do in my field, but at the end of the day, you will not switch to my field. You'll do what you feel is within your field based on the circumstances and the resources that you have at your disposal. So, first of all, I would like to say I'm not the only one who has faced challenges. I mean, I'm not sharing my story so that people can feel, maybe can have feelings. But the reason why I'm sharing my story with you today is because I believe there are some lessons you can learn from it. And I also believe you might get inspiration. And by inspiration, I mean the days you may go through stuff and then you realize someone else is going through the same, but they are working hard, or they worked hard if it's history. And then you remember, I'm not you the message that rings to your brain is you're not alone, and that you will maybe do something, or you get an idea of what to do. So in this context, I cannot really share the whole how I have lived the last many years, this being almost now turning 33 in the next few months, early next year. So, but what I would like to tell you is that I am not the only one, and there are other people out there who most likely might have better stories to give, or maybe they might have a better way of giving their story to inspire you people. But I would like to tell you that one of the moments that for me really affected me was the death of my mother, who passed away when she was 28 years, and I was young. I was 6. She used to live in Nairobi, so that means I never had an opportunity to interact with her or live with her. So by the age of let's say 6, I mean the only person, immediate parent I knew, or guardian I knew in my life, was my grandmother, who really struggled with me, and she made it, and may God continue protecting her. So that means in the early 90s, growing, the African context is a little bit different because we have that kind of unity, and people take care of kids who belong to their sisters or brothers or even distant relatives, which is one thing when we discuss the concept of development. Even today, it's something we appreciate, even when we appreciate every day in debates. So one thing also that also I came to go through was one day when I was in class 5, I was I would say I was sent home for school fees, and the following day we were having an exam, which was the end of year exam that would have meant probably, not probably, but really going to the next grade, which was grade 6. And my school was strict that if you didn't do the end of term exam or the end of year exam, you never go to the following year. I went home and I cried, and I knew my life was coming to an end. I really loved, books and reading, and also the whole issue of being the top 5 in class was a great thing. Um, but fortunately, I was able to go to school the following day and start for my exams and still continued with my better grades. The other aspect probably I would also share was when I finished class 8, I got a good grade, I would say call it a B plus, and I was admitted to a good school, a boarding school. But unfortunately, and for those who know, those who come from Ranga, that was Keishanjiro High School. So what happened was during that moment, um, my extended family could not afford my fee, so I was advised to repeat class 8, and I was the top one of the top 3 in class, so I was advised to repeat class 8, so that probably my family would raise school fees for me to go to high school. But ideally, the whole issue of repeating was go and repeat, probably you might get marks that can take you to Starehe Boys Center, which by then or even today is able to sponsor young these days they have even a girls school, so they sponsor bright students. So so I repeated, and after a few weeks again, one of my uncles came in, and I was able to go to high school. But again, the problem continued, and there's so many times which I would say I walked home from Kaishanjuru High School in Kandara to home in Sabasaba. Sometimes you'd be sent home for school fees, and you leave the school at 10 a.m. and you walk until, let's say, 3 p.m. That's when you arrive home. And imagine, by then I'm just 14 or 15 years, I'm in Form 1. So it was quite, but I never felt it. Today when I reflect back, I never really felt it. I felt like it's the price I needed to pay to get my education. So by the time I was in Form 2, I had again to change to now a different school. I went to a local day school, and my life changed again. I became a day scholar, and the good thing was the fee was little or smaller or relatively lower, and my grandmother could afford. So, and that was the school I went to, Sabasaba Secondary School, school that produces all grades. You know what I mean? All grades is because every year they have a top grade, 1 or 2, and then a few top grades and a number at the middle and others down there. So I just had a normal life like everyone else, or a life with challenges. But at the end of it all, then I also continued to have the issues of school fees, even at Sabasaba Secondary School, which is pretty cheap. And it was actually a well-wisher who was a local nominated counselor who used to pay my fee. He didn't even know where I used to come from. Just some nice guys also exist. So, and that's how I finished my high school. Of course, within the 2 years that people get during our time, I had 2 years before joining the University of Nairobi. I taught in different schools, that is high schools. I was also a guy who had an entrepreneurial mind, so I used to get invitations to go to high schools to speak to students, and they would pay because schools have budgets for that. They have budgets for people who come to speak to their students. And also I also used to do some private coaching, and this was one of the ways how I raised part of my university fee, initial fee, while joining the university. Towards it all, I would say by the time I was getting to the university, because of the government loans, the higher education loans board, I would say life a little bit settled. But that doesn't say, I had the best of the best, because you still struggle, because some expenses are huge as a student, like buying a computer by then, and which needed an investment. So this is what I would really say are the major highlights. And there are things that I will never be able to detach them from my life. But the idea is not to tell you that, to just give you that story, but just to let you know that despite all the things I went through, that I'm here and I'm talking to you as someone who would say I haven't really been where I want to be, but at least I have, I can say I have done something in life, and I have influenced people and young people to make great decisions for their lives. So what I would say is that even in the Bible, there are people who went through stuff and they had a great life. I'm always inspired by two young people, or two people who are young at some point in their lives, and that is Queen Esther. That story is my favorite in the Bible. And then we also have the story of Joseph, who rose from being sold by his brothers to becoming the prime minister of the country that was Egypt. Um, Maybe just to relate more, getting now from the Bible to an example that most of you would relate to again, I'll go to the story of Barack Obama, a story of a young man who had a very difficult upbringing. And when I say difficult upbringing, is someone who, and this is something that people maybe don't like discussing, but bringing up children in families with issues, they reflect and they think about those issues. And if you're one of them who has grown through a life either with one parent or without parents, or where parents have issues, I mean, I would say I know it's difficult, but let it not derail you. So Barack Obama grew up as a young kid with all the challenges most of you have had. And when Barack was being born, I mean, there are several issues you've heard about George Floyd in the US. And I can tell you things were worse before. So, and the man rose to become one of the best presidents of our time for the United States. So, what am I saying? I'm saying that the challenges you go through in life do not have necessarily to bring you down. Have a point in life of telling people that despite what I went through, I was able to do 1, 2, 3. That I was able to achieve this and this and this despite what I went through in life. Let us learn not to give the negative story, and that is what most of us concentrate on. Let's have something to add on and say, despite that I didn't go to a great school, or I went to a local school, I was able to achieve good grades. So you change the story. So I can tell you, change your story. Do not let your past define you. Do not let the things you went through in childhood define who you're going to become in future. You can change the story, and in the next slides or in the next section, I'll be now discussing how do we change the story, because we've seen it is possible. Maybe also I'd like to tell you that when we give these stories on the purpose of using our lives to tell you some of the lessons which you will find important in life, we are not trying to change your lives at all. We are not trying to maybe even tell you don't do this but do this. The idea is for you to reflect and to draw lessons from maybe the kind of life I've had. And once you draw lessons from it, you'll be able now to see what applies in your context. And I mean applying in your context because not all of us will have the same opportunities. Not all of us are in the same field. Not all of us have special skills, or maybe others, our skills might be elsewhere. So the idea is you guys, and this is what I would like to maybe emphasize, it's not changing your lives, but trying to draw lessons and thinking, reflecting as you watch this, how does it affect me? And this is what, even when you're reading a book, you should try and do that. Do not write notes on what the book says, especially when you're reading books. That read a book like you would want to tell someone a story in future. So how would you want that story to be relevant? So it's always good to write what you understand. It's always to reflect. So for example, when I tell you when I went through and all I've been able to achieve, to the fact that getting a global scholarship, and it was not the only scholarship I got. In 2019, I secured 3 scholarships, but I chose the Chevening scholarship because it's a great scholarship. And if you go to the people who've been Chevening scholars, either in their countries, they've been leaders either in their sectors, or in Kenya currently, we have a number of cabinet secretaries, including Amina Mohammed, and also the CS for Trade and Industrialization, Betty Minor, who is also a former Chevening scholar. So what I'm saying is that I got 3 opportunities, but that's what I would like you, the takeaway message here is, as you listen to this story, just learn to know what applies to you, what is relevant to you, what lessons can you draw, how can you reflect, how can you make it your story, how do you want to tell your story in future. Those are the questions. And your story, you won't tell it in the future, you're telling it today by the things you're doing. So you're determining whether you'll want to give a success story in future, or you'd want to give a story of disappointment, saying, and you know how a story of disappointment says, so and so didn't do this for me, my parents didn't do this for me, my school didn't do this for me. Those are not the stories we want to listen. We want to listen to stories, despite this not happening, I was able to achieve 1, 2, 3. And I would want you to remember that as you move along in life and make great choices that will make you great leaders of today and also tomorrow. Thank you.